Welcome to Around the Weird. Here's your host, the museum curator of the strange and unusual, Mr. Nothing.
Thank you, mysterious voice, and welcome back to Around the Weird, a booktube channel where I talk about all the unusual and out of the ordinary literature that I've found in my travels. Today it is Poetry Thursday, so I wanted to talk about some interesting poetry that I have found by a Black poet. It is Black History Month, as we are in February, and I wanted to talk about Black poets during this month, as well as Black short fiction writers for Short Story Tuesday, but we'll get to that on Tuesday. It's always good to talk about Black writers, and it's good to talk about them outside of February, not just make their gimmick, whole gimmick sort of thing be that you only talk about them in like Black History Month or Latino Heritage Month or something like that. I found a couple of good Black poets there's a lot of good Black poets, but I found a couple that I definitely want to talk about during this month. So we will talk about it throughout February and perhaps into March as well. And today's poem is all about a holy man of sorts. I am referring to Witch Doctor by Robert Hayden. For those who don't know, Robert Hayden was a Black American writer who lived in the 1900s. He was sort of part of the Black Renaissance, the Black arts movement in the 30s, 40s, and 50s, although he did not claim allegiance to that movement. And that might have been because he dealt with a lot of prejudice, a lot of discrimination that made it hard for him to sell and get his poetry out there. A lot of his poems weren't even covered or talked about that frequently until after his death, and a lot of that had to do with the racism and discrimination in the publishing literature fields at that time, and which still continue to this day. But that said, he still did gain some notoriety, including a position as the consultant for poetry in the Library of Congress, which would eventually be renamed into the Poet Laureate, which is a pretty cool position. He mainly only got a few volumes of poetry published, but from what I've read, it's pretty good poetry. So without further ado, let's talk about Witch Doctor. I will read it, do a little bit of analysis, and we will move on from there. Witch Doctor 1. He dines alone, surrounded by reflections of himself. Then after sleep and Benzedrine descends the sequin centro stair, his magic wrought from hypochondria of the well-to-do and nagging death wish of the poor, swirls on smiling genuflections of his liveried chauffeur into a crested lilac limousine, the cynosure of mousy neighbors tittering behind Venetian blinds and half afraid of him and half admiring his outrageous flair. 2. Meanwhile, his mother, priestess in gold lame, precedes him to the Quondam Theater, now Israel Temple of the highest Alpha, where the bored, the sick, the alien, the tired await euphoria. With deadly vigor, she prepares the way for mystery and lucre, shouts and blues contralto, he's God's dictaphone of all redeeming truth. Oh, he's the holy weight champion who's come to give the knockout lick to your bad luck. Says he's the holy weight champion who's here to deal a knockout punch to your hard luck. 3. Reposing on cushions of black leopard skin, he telephones instructions for a long, slow drive across the park that burgeons now with spring and sailors, peers questingly into the green fountainous twilight, sighs and turns the gold plate dial to music for your dining, dancing pleasure. Smoking Egyptian cigarettes rehearses in his mind a new device that he must use tonight. 4. Approaching Israel Temple, mask in place, he hears ragtime allegros of a song of Zion that becomes when he appears a hallelujah way for him to walk. His mother and a rainbow surpliced cordon conduct him choiring to the altar stage, and there he kneels and seems to pray before a lighted Jesus painted sealskin brown. Then with a glittering flourish he arises, turns, gracefully extends his draperied arms. Israelites, true Jews, O found lost tribe of Israel, receive my blessing now. Selah, Selah. He feels them yearn toward him as toward a lover exults before the image of himself their trust gives back. Stands as though in meditation, letting their eyes caress his garments jeweled and chatoyant. Cut to fall, to flow from his tall figure dramatically just so. Then all at once he sways, quivers, gesticulates, as if to ward off blows or kisses. And when he speaks again, he utters wilding vocables. Hypnotic, no words planned and never failing to enmesh his flock in theopathic tension. Cries of eudaimonic pain attest his artistry. Behind the mask he smiles, and now in subtly altering light he chants and sinuously trembles, chants and trembles while convulsive energies of eager faith surcharge the theater with power of their own. A power he has counted on and for a space allows to carry him. Disheveled antiphons proclaim the moment his followers all day have hungered for, but which is his alone. He signals, tambourines begin frenetic, drumbeat and glissando. He dances from the altar, robes hissing, flaring, shimmering, down aisles where mantled guardsmen intercept wild hands that arduously strain to clutch his vestments. He dances ensorcelled and aloof, the fervid juba of God as lover, healer, conjurer, and of himself as God. And so that was Witch Doctor by Robert Hayden. And this poem kind of goes hard in terms of analysis. There is a fair bit worth talking about with this poem. In terms of narrative, it seems to be about a preacher, a holy man. I don't quite know what to call him. A rabbi, since it's like a temple for Jews or something. Who goes to church in long flowing robes, followed by his mother, who is a priestess, who prays and for the poor, the hungry who have followed, and this kind of rapidly ascends and ascends and ascends, he's at a frenetic pace, as the poem says. He signals, tambourines begin, frenetic drumbeat and glissando. He dances from the alto, robes hissing, and there you see it's a very frenetic, very high, fast-paced kind of building, and everyone feels the love of God, the love of the conjurer and the healer, and he himself might be God, or that he has considered himself a god. So it's a very religious, very spiritual type poem, which you might think is very positive. But the more you look into this poem, you can see some criticisms of religion there. Because at the beginning of near the beginning of the poem, you see the narrator talking about the bored, the sick, the alien, the tired await euphoria. So, the destitute, the people who aren't doing well in society are turning to this man for help. And the mother's talking about how he's going to deliver the knockout blow to your bad luck, sort of like a champion of the people. But the more you read into the poem, the more you see that maybe he's not a common person. Maybe he's something more elaborate, more fanciful, because he has a chauffeur who's apparently driving him in a lilac limousine. And he's wearing these fancy gold robes of sorts that flow, and they're encrusted with crystals, diamonds, gems, very fancy, very like high upper class. The poor can't afford these, and yet he can. So what is this suggesting about this very rich this pastor? He's beloved by the people, but he's apparently withholding money from the people. The church is taking all the money that this community might have and is using it just to empower this wealthy pastor, the people of the church. Now, are they doing that intentionally, or do they believe that being flourishy will just draw more attention to this community? But the bigger question is, does that even matter? You could probably just give money to the community, to people in the community. And I don't really think that the church is doing that, because historically the church doesn't do that. They just keep all the money to themselves. And so you feel the crescendo in this poem through the big words that the narrator is using. As a passage, you can see he says, stands as though in meditation, letting their eyes caress his garments, jeweled and chatoyant, cut to fall, to flow from his tall figure, dramatically so. And I do have to give Robert Hayden credit for being so great at making this poem flow very naturally, using large words, but I think that calls attention to how out of touch maybe the pastor or the preacher in this story might be with the people. You can't be a man of the people and be using these words if a lot of people might not understand what all of this means. But I think in the end, maybe what matters most is the feeling of being touched or connected to God, even though it might also seem like this preacher believes himself to be God, that he's a sort of a mouthpiece for God, or just so fancy and beloved by the people that, that's what God is. So kind of putting himself before the religion at some point. A lot of interesting ideas discussed in this poem. I encourage you to seek this out. Anyway, those are my thoughts on Witch Doctor by Robert Hayden. A really solid poem, which, as I said before, goes pretty hard in terms of the flow, what Hayden is writing about, and the sort of the visual, the sort of descriptive nature of this poem really gets you in the mindset of what's going on in the scene. I definitely recommend you seek it out, so I'm going to put a link to it in the description. Let me know what your thoughts are in the comments below. Otherwise, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe so that more people can find out about this poet or this poem if they don't already know. And also join the Discord if you want to have more conversations about such things, including movies and books and whatnot. And until then, I wish you the best of luck in your weird and preachy kind of travels. Farewell.